The first thing you want to know about the Omnivore is that it is easy to use. There's a tabbed wizard interface, and for those of you that own ClearID, you will see the similarities. It's portable. You can take it with you anywhere you want to go. It fits in your pocket, or you can clip it on a belt that we include with the product. It is secure. It is a self-executing thumb drive. You do not need administrative rights to run it. There is no software that's installed on the system you're using it on. It's just an executable. It includes the encrypted Omnivore software on one partition, and it is also adjustable and password protected on two other partitions that we'll speak about. You also have accountability with the Omnivore. First of all, there's an optimization test to ensure no drop frames. It has a feature that allows you to calculate the offset between the actual time and date of day versus the DVR time. It does capture the original source uncompressed files from the system. It can also capture time code information. It actually includes two viewers that we'll look at as we go through the tool. Exports forensically accepted files, as we'll talk about. And there is 32 gig of storage available on the drive. Finally, there's a detailed capture report, which you'll see as well as we walk through the product. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. What you see on your screen right now is the Omnivore interface, and I'm going to walk through the various features of the interface and talk about the workflow that you would normally use when using the product. First of all, you'll see across the top of the screen 5 tabs. Again, those of you who use ClearID will know the similarities. The default screen that comes up is always the session information screen, and the workflow when using the Omnivore is from left to right. So when you're finished with one screen, you would go to the tab to the right, and so on and so forth as you use the product. Over on the right side of the screen, you'll see a help link, and if you click on that help link, it will add or show you an HTML screen where you have a number of resources for assistance. The first one is the actual Omnivore User's Guide. You also have a standalone DVR guide. The Omnivore can be used to capture uncompressed video and images not only from a Windows-based PC, but from a Windows-based PC. You can use the Omnivore to capture video and or images from a Linux-based, or what some folks call a standalone or black box DVR. And there's a guide for that as well. The Omnivore currently does not include an audio feature, and that's because it was designed initially for DVR capture, and most, not all, but most DVRs do not include audio. We have had considerable demand from folks in the field that have asked us to develop an audio feature so that they could use the tool for other reasons, for example, to collect video from internet resources such as YouTube or Facebook and things of that nature. There's also in this section a brief review of the Omnivore. It's about a 6-minute video. There's a 45-minute detailed training video, and we even provide you with a sample video. It's a time code video. Up here on the top right, you will also see that we have our support center, software updates. When you want to register an Omnivore after you've purchased one, you can do that from here as well. Any news about the Omnivore would be found here too. Now, continuing on with the features of the interface, if we go along the bottom of the primary interface, you'll see on the left-hand side a meter, and that is the meter that tells you how much storage space you have on one of two partitions. You have an unsecured partition and a secured partition, and I'll show you shortly how you would read that meter. The next graphic is an image of a camera, and then there's an image of a video camera. Whichever mode that you want to be in, you would just select that mode, and then that image would turn red, showing you that you're in the active mode. To the right of the video camera graphic, you have a record or capture button, and that is the button that you would click to not only start, but stop your capture. Whether you're taking a still image picture or recording video, that is your start and stop button. The file name prefix field. This is where you would name your cameras. If you're collecting video from a number of cameras on a system, you would use this field for that, and I will show you that when we actually do a live capture. The next area shows you the image format that you're collecting, or if you're collecting video, it would show that as well. And then FPS naturally stands for frames per second. You would see that there when you're actively collecting video. The button that looks like the play button is how you would launch your Omnivore viewer, which we will look at as well. And then to the right of that, you see a padlock. Now with that padlock, that is what you would use if you want to open the unsecure partition. And what I'm going to do right now to show you an example is I just opened Windows Explorer to show you how this works. You can see that under the Omnivore CD-ROM partition, it says unsecured. That's the unsecured partition of the Omnivore. Now, as I mentioned, there's two partitions. There's an unsecured and secured. Now, the Windows system is not even seeing the secured partition because it does not know it's there. There's a couple of reasons that we have two partitions. An unsecured partition, as an example, could be used if you had a mall shooting and you needed to get a picture out very quickly. Well, if you were at the scene and you captured a couple of images and/or video from that scene, you could then run into like a CVS pharmacy or your local drugstore that will typically have a Kodak kiosk. And you could insert your Omnivore into that kiosk, and because those kiosks do recognize a Windows USB device, it will see anything that's on the unsecured partition of your drive. So if you saved your images to the unsecured partition, when you're at that kiosk, the kiosk would recognize those and you could print those images on the spot. The secured partition can only be opened and will only be recognized when you open it. So you would come over here to this padlock, and when you click on the padlock, you enter the password. And when you click enter, you will see that the secured partition opens up on the drive. And you can see that over here. So now Windows knows this is a secured partition. So at that same kiosk, if you had your images on your secured partition, the kiosk would not even know that it's there because you don't have the means to unlock that partition when you're at a kiosk like that. So the secured partition is really for instances where you have possibly classified or sensitive information, possibly child porn, or any type of video or images that maybe even a colleague is not supposed to see. The only person or persons that would be able to view the data on the secured partition are those folks who have the password to unlock that partition. And when we send the drive out to you brand new, there's a default password, but we also provide administrative software that allows you to change that password to whatever you want, and I'll go over that later on. If you want to lock your secured partition, again, you just click on that image of the padlock, and it will turn from red to green. This last item here is a feature that allows you to expand or collapse the Omnivore. If you do that and you have real estate issues on your screen, this can be a useful tool to expand or collapse the entire interface. I've just walked you through the general parameters of the interface, and now I'm going to walk you through each screen as if we were going to do a capture. So what I'm going to do now is bring up a DVR player that has some video on it, and then go through the various screens that you would use to capture. Okay, the first screen, as I mentioned, is called the session info or information screen. You will note that there are the first three fields here are in red text, and that means that those are required fields. The fields that are in black text are optional. So the first thing that you see here is a date and time, and it has June 13th at 12:59. That's actually the date and time that I plugged in the Omnivore today. So that's the date and time that will be pulled into this field. You can change that, as I'll do now, and put in the date and time of the current session. So I presently have about 1:50 p.m., and this is a military clock, so you do need to put in the military time, in this case 13:50. And whatever time is in that field when you're finished will be added to the report. In fact, all of the information as you move through each screen during your capture will be added to your detailed capture report. The next field is the username field. Now you'll see here that it's auto-populated with B. Kerrigan. That's because I added that profile. The Omnivore can be shared across multiple users, and if you want to add a user, just click on the Add Edit button over to the right, click the word Add, and that will clear the field, and then you could add the person's name. Again, the username is the only required field here. If you want to add an employee ID or a badge number, you could put that in, and then you could also spell out the person or the user's name as well. When you're finished adding the information, you click Save, and then you click Close, and then you'll see here when I look at the drop-down that there are, in fact, 2 users that I can choose from. Whichever user is selected is the user's name that will be used to build the structure for where you're going to find your video and image later on, as well as the name that will show up in the report as the person who was doing the capturing. The case ID, let's pretend we have a 7-Eleven robbery here. So I'm going to name that. And if I have a case number already, I can add that as well. If I want to put an address, I can enter in an address of the scene. And any notes I may want to take about the case or about the system or about the location, I can enter into the notes field. Again, all of this information will end up in your detailed capture report. When you're finished with each screen, as I said, you would click on the tab to the right. So this next screen is called the Output Settings screen. And here is where you are going to choose your still image format, and your options are uncompressed TIFF or uncompressed bitmap. Here too, you're going to choose your save to location. Where are you going to save these images and or video? And you have a couple of choices here as well. The default location is right on the Omnivore thumb drive in the unsecured partition. Right? If you look down below, there's a root path, end path, and full path. You can see as you're moving through, you're starting to build the path for where you're going to find this data later. As you can see here, because unsecured is checked, you have the full path as unsecured Omnivore, B. Kerrigan as the user, 7-Eleven robbery with a case number appended, and that will be included in the file. Now, if I wanted to open or choose the secured partition, just like I talked about before, you just come down to this padlock, you enter in the password. That will open the secured partition. That autoplay button will always come up. You can just close that. And now the secured partition is available as a save to location. Further, if I'm at a scene and I have like a SATA drive, or if I'm doing some work at my desk and I want to capture to a much larger drive, I can choose my computer and then browse to whichever drive that I want to save to. And now I would be saving out my data, in this case, to my C drive. Now remember that meter that we talked about? The meter is down here on the lower right side. Whichever save to location I'm looking at, if I come down and look at this meter, I can see by hovering over that meter how much space is available. So you can see on my C drive here that I have almost 400 gig of space that's available. If I go back to my secured partition, you'll see that I have 26 gig available. And if I go to my unsecured partition, you'll see that I have a little less than 3 gig available. Now, it's important to understand that when we send out an Omnivore to you, we split the partitions about 50-50. The encrypted Omnivore software itself resides on a CD partition that takes up a little space, and then the remaining space is split with storage. So as I said, we split it about 50-50. You're going to have about 15 gig on each side, but you can change that allocation as well with the administrative software that we provide, and again, I'll show you that here in a little while. For this purpose, or for today's example, I'm going to start with the unsecured partition of the drive, And again, I have a little less than 3 gig in that partition. Once I'm finished on this screen, I move to the right, and that would bring me to the date time sync screen. Now this is an optional screen. This screen would be used for those examples where you have a DVR that has the wrong date and time. Maybe it's an hour old, maybe it's a day old, 3 days old, or 3 years old. I had someone that called last week and said they had a DVR that was off by like 8 years or something. But what this is basically is a calculator that will help you determine the offset between the actual date and time versus the DVR system date and time. So again, the first thing you do here is you put in the actual date and time. I have 6/13/2012, and right now I have about, let's just say it's 2 o'clock. I would then click this button on the right called Set Sync, and that's going to ask me to enter whatever the date and time was that you see on the DVR. So let's just say that DVR said it was April 12th, 2012, and maybe it says it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Once I enter that time, I click Set Sync again, and that gives me the time offset. Again, the difference between today's date and time and whatever the date and time reading out from that DVR. In this case, it was over 61 days, 23 hours, and 23 seconds difference. Now, what's most helpful here is you'll notice on the bottom part of this screen that a time conversion tool has just popped up. And this can come in really handy in the following example. Let's just say that the 7-Eleven robbery also included a stabbing or a shooting of the clerk. And let's say there was either a witness or a dispatch time that tells us that that clerk was stabbed. Let's make it May 5th. So in this date time field here, I would put in 05/05/12, and let's say it happened at 11:30 at night. That's the date and time I would put in here. And I have 2 radio buttons below that. One says local to DVR time, the other says DVR to local time. If I leave it local to DVR time, because I have this dispatch or witness time, when I click the convert button, as I just did, the converted time is going to show me on this DVR that had an incorrect date and time to start with, where and when I would find the video that shows the stabbing or the shooting of that clerk. And now I don't have to go through a couple of months of video, if there's even that much video on the machine. I can reliably go right to the area where I would expect to find the video. Now, in the example where you don't have the luxury of a witness saying what time the incident occurred or a dispatch time, once you did find that video, you could come into the Omnivore and click the other button, and when you find the actual date and time, let's say it happened on June 1st at 10 in the morning. Now, because I have the DVR to local time button clicked, when I click convert, it'll show me the actual date and time when the incident happened. So that's what this tool is for. Again, completely optional. If you have a DVR that is reading out the correct date and time, you would not even use this screen. You would just skip over it. When you do have a DVR that has the incorrect date and time and you do use this screen, all of the information that you see here is included in your detailed capture report. When you're finished here, or if you never needed this screen, you would go to the next screen called the video settings screen. Now, when I clicked on that screen, up pops this other box that we call an overlay screen. And the default on the overlay screen is like a dark charcoal color. And the best way to think of this overlay is like a piece of carbon paper from the old days. And the reason that's a good analogy is because anything that's behind this overlay screen is going to be captured, whether it's a still image or the video. Now, with this particular player that we're using, it's called an LWT viewer, it's got all of this dark black area here, and our screen is charcoal. So we have a number of features to help you that I'm going to walk through now. The first one up at the top, you see close and reset. If I click close, that closes the overlay screen. To open it up again, you just click anywhere on the video settings screen. And you could drag this overlay screen around with your mouse. Reset is going to put it back to where it opened in the beginning. And then you see this change background color. This allows you to change the color of that overlay to whatever color you want to improve your visibility. So I just changed mine to like a yellow color. And you'll also notice that there's this transparency slider here that allows you to adjust that, again, to kind of fine-tune your visibility. If I bring it all the way out, you'll see better here. You can read there's an option to change the dimensions of this screen. And if I click on that, I can actually type in, for example, 640 by 480. And when I hit enter, that changes the size of my overlay screen. If I don't want to use that option, I can just drag the end of my overlay screen and make it any size that I want. There's a box here that says show dimensions, and as I drag this screen around and make it a different shape and size, the dimensions are changing in real time. In this case, it shows me the size of the window, the ratio, the size of that screen in inches, and even the bit depth on the monitor that you're on. There are some sound effects with the Omnivore, so when you're taking a still picture, it sounds like a camera, a real camera snapping a picture. And when you're about to capture video, there's a little countdown clock. So if you're using the Omnivore in a place that you need to be super quiet, we give you the option to disable those sounds, and this is where you would do that by just checking on that box. Now the one that I skipped over is called Snap to Closest Window. So if I click on that, when I drag this box around, you will notice that wherever I am with that overlay, any windows that I'm going over, you'll notice a red bounding box appear. And wherever I am when I let go of that mouse, wherever that bounding box, that red box is where the window is going to snap to. So obviously the point of this is to snap to the window that you want to capture the video from. So if I have it over the video window when I let go, it's going to snap right to that window. All right, so right now I have my overlay window over the video that I want to capture in this player. I want to point something out on this player. First of all, I'm going to collapse my screen, my Omnivore screen. I'm going to unsnap this snap to closest window box because I want to manually change the size of my overlay screen. These are just examples of what you might want to do. I'm already at the scene and I forgot my pen, and I don't have a pad or anything to write on either, but I want to get the name of this viewer, right? And I want to have that included in evidence. So one of the things I could do in this viewer is I can click on the help button, and it says about viewer, and right here it tells me the version number of this viewer, the copyright, the manufacturer, etc. And I could leave that there, and I could bring my little overlay screen up to the top of the viewer and drag it across the entire viewer. Now when I do that, I can take a picture of this viewer, and I'll have that picture to go back with me, and there'll be a little report included along with the picture. And the way that I do that, as you just saw, is I drag that overlay across whatever it is I want the picture to include. Make sure that I'm in camera mode, and again, the red color indicates the active mode. And when I'm ready to take a picture in camera mode, I just click my record button. And if you were here live, because I did not disable capture sounds, you would hear a little sound like a shutter of a camera, and you would see a flash. And I just took a picture of that viewer. Now I can grab the snap to and then just snap right back. Oh, I need to actually I need to close my help button first. And now I'm ready to proceed with my video capture. And by the way, if I wanted, obviously I could take pictures of anything else that I might have wanted to take pictures of as well. But we're going to move along. Now, Something else I want to point out here, I'm going to make the transparency a little better, is in the window where I'm going to capture the video, in this particular player, you'll notice that the timestamp is not present. Now, in the old days, most of these DVR players included the timestamp, and often it was the case that the timestamp was right over the suspect's face, or an important tattoo or logo or something that you're trying to get. And then with feedback from law enforcement over the years, the manufacturers started moving the time code elsewhere on the player to avoid that type of a situation. So as you can see in this case, the time code for this camera is not here, but over here on the right, in where you see it says camera 3, I do have a time code. So what the Omnivore does is it allows you to capture the time code even though it's in a different location than the video that you're capturing, and I'm going to show you how we would do that. So the first thing I would want to do is come down here on the Omnivore. I'll use my spotlight, and you'll see a box that says capture time code. Well, you check that box, and when you do, you'll notice another overlay window just came up. I'll change the transparency so you can see it better. And again, I could drag that overlay around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that overlay right over my time code. And I'm going to size it right over that. Now when I capture my video, the Omnivore is also going to capture the time code as a movie. And then we're going to give you the ability to integrate those, as you'll see shortly. Well, in addition to capturing the time code, I want to be precise. And you'll notice that this viewer potentially had 16 cameras that you could capture from. So when I'm capturing my video, I want to name the file, in this case, based on the camera number that I'm capturing. So as you can see here, if I use my spotlight, this particular camera is camera number 3. Well, what I can do is come down to the file name prefix dropdown. In there, I will name the camera, and it would be good to either put a hyphen or an underscore before the name. When you're looking for this video later, you will see the name camera 3 appended to that. In fact, if you look at the path, you will see that camera 3 was just added. And whether I named it, I could go back after I'm finished with camera 3. If I need to capture camera 4, I would just come back into this field and I would change it to camera 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. All right? So now I've named my camera, and I'm ready to do what we call an optimization test. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the product, in that the Omnivore gives you the opportunity to capture uncompressed video and also ensure that you do not drop a frame. Now, all video capture software that's out there, we've tested them all of them drop frames, including one of our earlier products called DVR Decoder. Most of these companies don't even admit that they're dropping frames. In the case of DVR Decoder, we do tell you if you're dropping frames. We have a little indicator that's in the form of a red exclamation mark, and if you are dropping frames, that red exclamation mark is flashing to let you know that. The reason that frames can be dropped typically is because the recorder or the recording application cannot keep up with the player in terms of the number of frames that are playing. So we have this optimization test available to let you know how much video you can capture and be sure that you're not going to drop any frames, and we tell you that. So if you look here in this area, you'll see some directions. They're very simple. Again, it tells you what's happening. Optimization estimates how long you can capture given the video frame size, the frame rate, the system performance, and the space available. And what the Omnivore does is it actually measures all of those things. It actually looks at how much memory is on the computer that you're working from. It looks at the size of the video. It looks at the frames per second. It actually determines the frames per second based on the playing of the video, and then it lets you know for a period of time how much of that video you can capture without dropping a frame. And there are steps here which are simple. It tells you to open the video in a player, which we've done. It tells you to size the overlay to the video, which we've done. And then it says click optimize, but then don't forget to start the video. So we're going to do that now. The first thing you want to do is make sure you are in video capture mode, and again, that's by clicking on the graphic of the movie camera so that it's red, meaning it's in active mode. And I'm going to click this button that says Optimize and then start my player. And I'll do that now. You'll see here that it says sampling playback rate, and it's conducting the test. The test takes anywhere from 8 to 10 seconds, and when the test is complete, the results will be presented on the right side of the screen, as you can see over here. And what the results are telling me are, first of all, that the dimensions of this video I'm capturing are 320 by 240. It's telling me that the initial average playback rate, based on the test just conducted, is 11 frames per second. I'm going to skip current average for the moment, and I'm going to go to the recommended sample rate. You'll notice that whatever the initial average playback rate is, the recommended sample rate doubles that number. And that is, we want the Omnivore capturing at twice the speed of whatever the player is playing the video at to ensure that you're not going to drop any frames. And again, based on your hardware, the size of the video, the frames per second that the video is playing at, the Omnivore has estimated in this case with this player on this system that you could capture 15 minutes and 28 seconds or just over 10,000 frames of this video without dropping a frame. What if that's not enough? What if you have 30 minutes of video or an hour and a half of video? Well, if you look back over here in the optimization area, it tells you if your capture duration isn't long enough, go to the Output Settings tab and direct the Save To location to a drive with more free space. That's because the Omnivore is, as part of its calculation set, looking at how much space you have. And if you remember, when I looked at my meter over here before, I only had a little less than 3 gig on that partition where I was saving my video. So let's follow these instructions and do what it says. It's telling me go back to my Output Settings tab, and now I'm going to change the Save To location to a partition with more free space. So I'm going to go to the secured partition. If I go down to my meter, it tells me here that my secured partition has way more space than my unsecured partition, in fact almost 27 gig. Now I'm going to go back to my video settings screen, and I'm going to redo this optimization test to see if I can get a longer capture duration. So again, I just click Optimize, and I click Play on the player, and I wait my 8 to 10 seconds. And when it's finished, in this case, because I had 27 gig available, it's telling me I can capture 2 hours and 19 minutes or over 92,000 frames without dropping a single frame. Well, maybe that's not enough. So follow the directions, go back to the Output Settings tab, and choose a drive with more free space. Remember, my C drive, if you're out of the scene, you're going to need a SATA drive for this one. If you're in the office, you could just use your C drive on the PC that you're using or the laptop that you're using. Or out in the field, it might be the drive on the laptop that you're using. But in this case, I have, again, over 390 gig available. So I'll go back to my video settings screen, I'll click Optimize, I'll click Play, and we'll see what this test with a much, much larger drive allows me to do. Well, here now it's telling me that I can capture 1 day and 10 hours of video because I have all that extra space. So you see, you have various options in terms of long video captures. And if you had a multi-terabyte drive, 500 gig or 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes, obviously you'd be able to capture even more. Let's go back. I'm going to stick with my unsecured partition for now, for the purposes of the capture I'm going to do. So I want to save it onto my unsecured partition. All right, so I'm back to that 15 minutes. So now I'm ready, right? I have my timestamp is covered. I'm going to capture that. I've named my camera, camera 3. I've got my video overlay screen in place, and I'm ready to capture my video. So that what I need to do is just click on the record or capture button, and when I think I have whatever video I need, I would click that again to stop. So I'll click, and you'll see a little countdown clock, 3, 2, 1. And as it's starting to collect the video, I need to play the player. It's always important to play the player when you're trying to capture playing video. You'll see that the number of frames, first of all, I'm capturing at 22 frames per second, if you look down here. And the number of frames are being counted over on the right-hand side. Now, this is a short video. When I'm finished, I click the record capture button, and up pops what we call the captured preview screen. You might call this a preview viewer. I can close my DVR player, and now I have this captured preview viewer. And in this viewer, I can scroll back and forth, just grab my mouse and scroll through this video. And you'll see on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side, there's a frame counter. The right-hand number tells me the total number of frames, and as I'm scrolling through the video, there's a frame counter. So if I stop on a given frame, I know exactly what frame number I'm on. You'll also notice that the time code that was in a separate location on the player is now nicely and neatly showing right below the video. If I'm happy with this, and the reason that we give you this preview viewer is to just make sure that before you leave the scene, you have what you think you need, right? So you can kind of just check, yep, that's what I need. And then when you click save, it's going to save that video as a raw file, right? Now the raw file is going to be a .omv file, short for Omnivore. And I'm going to show you where you'd find that file in a little bit. But once you have that file, your work is done. If that's the only camera that you needed to capture, you can kind of pack up and then go back to the office. Now, if you're the forensic video analyst, when you get back to the office, you may do this, this next portion yourself. If you are not, if you are an officer or a detective in the field that's just collecting the video, and when you get back to the office, you're bringing it to your forensic analyst, you can hand the Omnivore over to that person, and then that person would proceed from there. Now, if I'm the forensic analyst that I just described, first of all, this little time code window that you see up here, to get rid of that, you just uncheck capture time code and that'll go away. But now if I'm the forensic analyst and I want to see what was collected in the field, I put my Omnivore into my PC at the office, and again, the interface will open, and it doesn't matter what screen I'm on. I would click this Omnivore viewer button. And when I do that, that will open up what's called the Omnivore viewer. And here, I would click on File. I would click Open OMV File. And it's going to open exactly to the location where that video or videos were saved. In this case, you can see camera 3, June 13, 2012. And all I do is double click on that. When I do so, it opens a file information, basically a summary screen that kind of gives a clue to what it is you're about to look at. And you'll see the information there. It has the date and time, the username, the case ID that was entered. In this case, you had a time offset, the initial frame rate, the total number of frames collected. You'll see the total number of frames dropped in this case was 0, the size of the video window, the time code, etc., the location, and any notes that were included. When you click OK, that screen goes away and you're presented with the viewer. If for some reason you need to get that file summary information back, just click on Edit and then click on File Info, and you can get that back. Now, here's the Omnivore viewer. And again, you see my timestamp is there. There is not a play button to play the video currently. You would just grab that scroll bar and scroll through any number of frames. That's one way you could do it. The other way you could do it to play the video is just use your right and left arrow keys on your keyboard, and that would serve as a play button. Now, what's different on this viewer than the preview viewer, you might have noticed already, is that you could do slight editing here. You have a mark in and a mark out button. So let's just say you went to frame number 40 and I wanted to print that frame. Maybe that had a nice, good image of a suspect. I would just click Mark In and then click Out on that frame. Then I would go up to File, and you see all these options here. I can save movies or I can save individual images. Well, what I'm trying to do here is save an individual image. And I have the choice of bitmap or TIFF. So let's say I want to save a TIFF. Now you'll see this Overlay Timecode button. You have the option of turning that on or off. And if I turn it on, it allows me to configure the timecode. Now you'll see here the timecode on the lower right side. I can click top left, top right, bottom left, or bottom right. In other words, I could place that timecode in any one corner of the screen, or I could just grab that timecode with my mouse, and if I wanted to put it in the center, for example, I could do that. And if I like it wherever it is, I click OK. Now when I go to save this image, I'm going to save this on my desktop, let's say, and I'm going to create a folder on here called George. All right? And I'm going to call this first image George Jr. Whoops, G-E-O. All right, and I'm saving George Jr. in the folder that you see over here. Let me grab my spotlight. You'll see the folder I just created over here called George. That's where I'm saving this image. The name of the image is George Jr. In fact, I'm going to open this file. So you can see, now when I click Save, you'll see the image that I just saved in that folder. Right? Now I'm going to delete that image for a moment. Now let's clear my mark in, mark out. And let's just say I want to save all 160 of those images as uncompressed bitmaps. Right? Again, I could go to my file, or excuse me, my folder. I'm going to save it to George again. I'm going to call this one Jimbo. These are going to be Jimbo images. And when I click Save, notice I didn't overlay the timecode on this one because I might not need it. Or let's say I do need it. So I'll configure that right there in the center. Now when I click OK, all of those images were just saved into the file called George, or as with the name Jimbo. I'll do medium icons. So now I have 160 images from that video saved as uncompressed bitmaps. I'm going to delete all those. Okay. Let's say I want to save this as an uncompressed AVI movie, the entire file. Or maybe I want to just save 10 seconds of it. So I click Mark In, and maybe I go from frame 30 to 40 and click Mark Out. Those are the only frames I need in the movie. I click File, Save as AVI, Overlay Timecode again. Maybe I'm going to put it on the top left this time. Click OK. Click Save. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it in George and call this Sally. Right? If I open the George folder, there's my video. It's uncompressed. It's called Sally. Now this is the same file that was on the original DVR. We took it off the DVR as an uncompressed raw file, and then we just converted it to an uncompressed AVI. You could do the same thing with, again, if I clear this and maybe I want the entire video, I could save it as an uncompressed MOV file. Or if I don't need it to be compressed and so large, we also have given based on feedback, we've given you the option to save it as a Windows media file. So you have all these options to save out videos and or images. Now, another nice feature is if maybe I captured 16 videos for some reason. And now I bring all 16 videos back to my forensic analyst, and my forensic analyst would have some work to do, especially if those videos took some time. Let's say each video was 10 minutes long or 1 hour long. Well, instead of that analyst having to sit there and do one at a time for all 16 videos, the analyst could just click on Batch Convert, indicate that I want to save all 16, for example, as an uncompressed AVI format, browse to the folder where they were going to save those files. Again, if I did it on the desktop, or I made a new folder, you know, whatever. Maybe I'll call that Henry. And now I'm going to save the videos into the folder called Henry. The point is that forensic analyst, once you do this, can now go to lunch or can now go home and get some rest. And the Omnivore will convert all 16 of those videos to whichever folder that you chose to save them to while you're either out dining or home sleeping. And when you come back, there will be a little indicator that says all files were converted successfully. Another option in this file menu is something called Repair Temp File. Repair Temp File can be of assistance if, let's say, you were out at that 7-Eleven and you were capturing an hour's worth of video. And 55 minutes into your capture, the power at that 7-Eleven went out. In most cases, you would have just lost any of the video that you were saving. But in the case of the Omnivore, all of the video that you had been capturing up to the point where the power went out would be available to you because it's literally capturing it real time to a temp file. So you would use this Repair Temp File feature, and I'm not going to get into this on the webinar. There are instructions on how to do that right in the manual. But again, that's another option in a scenario that if you ever run into that, you can use. Okay, now I'm going to get out of here for a moment, bring up my Omnivore, and we're going to talk about the viewer. If I open Windows Explorer, right, I can see the Omnivore executable and the Omnivore viewer right here. What's nice about the Omnivore, when you buy one Omnivore, as we said, you can share the Omnivore across users. But when you buy one, and maybe you have a pair of detectives or 4 detectives that are sharing that Omnivore, or maybe they all have their own Omnivore, either way. What you can do is you can share or freely distribute the Omnivore viewer to anybody and everybody that you want within your agency or even at your prosecutor or district attorney's office. And why that can be valuable is as follows. First of all, I would just go onto a desktop like I did. I would open Windows Explorer. I would open the Omnivore so that I could see both executables. And then I would just drag off the Omnivore viewer. I already had one on my desktop, so I'll just say copy and replace. Now there's my viewer. I can then, using a thumb drive or even the Omnivore drive for that matter, I can bring that viewer over to my DA's office and I can share that viewer with all of the folks at the DA's office. Or if it's within my own agency, if I need 200 folks within my agency to have their own Omnivore viewer, I would just load it on everybody's desktop. There is no software that's installed. It's simply an executable. And now when you give any of those people any of the videos that you captured with the Omnivore, they can just drag it right over. In fact, I will do that to show you. Actually, I'll just look at it here. Okay, so here's one of my videos, right? So now if I bring a video again to whomever it is that I've shared that viewer with, you can just put that video on their desktop and they could just pop it onto that viewer, and they not only have the video that you just provided to them, but they also have every single tool that I just showed you in terms of being able to save out that video as uncompressed AVIs, MOVs, or WMVs, or if they were images, they wanted to save out still images, one or all of them, again, as bitmaps or TIFFs. So they have the same power that you had when you first captured that video at their fingertips on their own desktop. So again, a very nice feature. I'm going to open the Omnivore screen again, and now we're going to talk about the utility screen. That's the last tab on the right-hand side of the interface. And on the utility screen, this is where you'll see your software version. It'll have your serial numbers, so when you, if you do get an Omnivore, this is where you would find the serial number to register it. It'll also let you know what version you have. So if you're going to upload a newer version that we release, for example, when we do release audio, we will have an audio feature at some point. Again, it's currently in development. We have an alpha version presently. I don't have a target time frame for release, but we will keep you posted. But when you're going to upgrade the Omnivore, this is how you can check your version number. You'll also see a Launch File Explorer window here. If I click that, I can open my File Explorer and see the various files that I may have captured. There's the overview video, which is also available on the help screen, and you can open that video directly from the Omnivore. And then you can also reset the overlay window from this screen. In addition, here you're going to see something called temp file path, and there's a feature on the Omnivore that's called enabling quick save. Now this is a feature you can use when you're on a, like if you're in the field on a laptop with a C drive, for example, or if you're doing work at your desk. You can use this feature as well. And the way that this feature works is, let's just say you had a 4-hour video. Well, instead of, if you're saving that to your Omnivore drive, you're going to need to wait the amount of time of the video capture. So if it was a 30-minute video, it's probably going to take, depending on whether you're saving it, you know, what type of storage space you're saving it to, it can take, you know, 20 to 30 minutes. If it's several hours, it could take several hours that you're going to need to wait to save. The enabling quick save feature allows you, when you're on a laptop or on your own desktop, it allows you to come to this temp file path and click, for example, the C drive. And then when you go back to your output settings screen, if you click the same drive, that allows you to use this quick save feature such that when you go ahead and save your video, it will save instantly. Even if it's a 30-minute, 60-minute, 3-hour video, it'll automatically save using the quick save feature. Now we do include a warning here, and I'll just highlight that as well. The warning is here, and we tell you do not set this path to the Omnivore drive or any other USB device, and that is because it's not supported. This enabling quick save feature is only supported when you're on a computer hard drive. So that's the Omnivore. I'm going to go over the administrative software. The image on the left basically shows when you do order an Omnivore, it comes in this pretty box that you see here. There is a small case that has a belt clip on. You can clip that right on your belt. You'll see there are various accessories. We have a USB extender. We have a network cable, and we also have a crossover cable adapter. And the network cable and crossover cable adapter can be used when you use the guide that I showed you earlier for capturing video from a laptop that you're cross-connecting to a Linux-based or a black box standalone type DVR. Now, you'll also see this disk here. The disk is the Omnivore administrative software. And as I mentioned previously, there's a couple of things you can do with this software. One of them is to bring up the manager, which I'm going to do here. When you put that disk in a computer, you'll see there's an icon that has a little padlock on it that looks like this, so you're seeing it on your screen. And when you double click on that icon, it brings up this small interface called Omnivore Manager. And there are two options. One is to change the password. If you click on that, just like most software, it tells you to put in the current password and then enter and confirm your new password. And that will change the password for the secured partition of your Omnivore drive. The other option is to reinitialize the drive. And when you click on that, you're presented with a nag screen that has a warning. And this is a very important warning because it says if you proceed with reinitializing your Omnivore drive, it will erase any and all data from both the secured and unsecured partitions and reset the secured password to its factory default. The factory default is admin, all right? And it also tells you that this process is irreversible. Basically, the bottom line here is what we are saying is before you reinitialize your Omnivore, if you value the data in video and or images that may be residing on that drive, you will want to save or archive that data off before proceeding with this operation. If you've done that and you're ready to go, you just do what it says and type proceed, and you're presented with the next screen, which is called the partition allocation screen. And here, it tells you right there, use the slider below to allocate the drive space between the secured and unsecured partitions. Now, if you remember when we looked at my meter, I had my unsecured partition set to just under 3 gig, 2.96, and my secured was set at 26.66 gig. Well, if I want to change that, I just take this little slider bar, and if I move it to the right, I'm reducing the size of my secure partition and increasing the size of my unsecured partition, and vice versa. So a very simple tool to reallocate the size of those drives. There would be various reasons that you want to have more or less on either partition, and we leave that up to you. You'll also note over here on the bottom right that there is this box that you can check that says wipe secured partition. And what this is about is, as most of you are probably well aware, just because you delete data from a drive doesn't mean that a computer forensics expert or a hacker, a very talented hacker, can't get into that drive and recover what you had already deleted unless there was a secure wipe of the data on that drive. And in this case, if you click the wipe secured partition box here, what we will do is when you reallocate or reinitialize this drive, we will write blanking zeros over any all data that was on the secured partition, such that later on a computer forensic expert or skilled hacker, even if they got into the drive, would never be able to recover that data because it was written over. So that's what that's for, and if you do check that box, it's going to take a little longer for the allocation to take place. And that's how simply you can manage your Omnivore drive. The next item I want to show you is the Omnivore Updater. And this is for when you are going to update your Omnivore drive to a new version release that we put out. Again, so for example, the next release or whenever we come out with audio, that feature, that's when you would use this tool. And the way that you use this tool is the first thing you do is make sure your Omnivore is plugged in to the USB port on your PC, and then you double click on the icon. When you do that, you will see a box that comes up that says Omnivore Updater. It's a software serial number that it's reading from the drive you have in your USB port. If you don't have your drive in your USB port, you're going to get a little message that says, hello, put your drive in so we can read it. So once you've done that, it's also going to tell you the version that you currently have on the drive for both the Omnivore and the viewer, and then it'll tell you whatever the new version is. Now, as you can see here, I am on the latest version. And if you have an Omnivore drive today, this is one way to check if you have the latest version. You can go to our website under the support section under downloads, plug your Omnivore in, go to the Omnivore download, and you would be able to see if you have the latest version. If you don't, if there's a newer version, the numbers in this lower section here will be some date beyond March 22nd, 2012. And when you are going to load the new version, again, heed the warning. It says you're about to update the Omnivore capture software on the Omnivore CD partition. However, in this case, The update does not clear your usernames or wipe the data from your secured and unsecured partitions. And if you wanted to proceed, which I don't need to because I'm the latest version, you would type the word proceed, click OK, and again, just follow those instructions.